For us, Tumza, just on the balcony here of our ENCA headquarters. Now, one of the biggest issues we need to talk about is not just the high rate of divorce in our country, but a new court case is set to affect child maintenance payments after divorce. So if you're one of those people who has sadly gone through a divorce and there are children involved, and of course maintenance that goes with that, you may want to pay attention to this interview. It's raised questions of whether maintenance debt can be cancelled after a period of time. It's all very complicated. We're going to try and break it down and keep it simple. I'm joined by the CEO of Capital Legacy. It's Alex Simeonides this morning. Alex, hello to you. So let's just assume for a moment someone watching right now has gotten divorced. There is a maintenance agreement in place, but they don't quite know what you and I are talking about. Just bring us up to speed. What is this about?
Well, look, so in terms of debts, the law provides for a period of time that if you don't do anything as a person who's owed the money, your right to claim the money lapses. Generally speaking, the term is 3 years, and we call it prescription. This particular case you're mentioning at the moment, this poses a huge risk to say someone who's divorced and like you said, with children, and they successfully got a maintenance order, and say the person doesn't pay the maintenance order. There was a view up until this court ruling that if you didn't instigate any legal proceedings to get money for non-payment after 3 years, then it would actually fall away. But this ruling has now upheld that it's actually a court order, and the time allowed is 30 years. So that gives a whole lot more time and space for people who are entitled to a maintenance claim to actually enforce payment.
It's because from my very basic reading on this as well, the court case centralizing around a point of maintenance not being paid by one part of a divorced couple, this claim coming through, and the backdated payments was amounting to almost 3.5 million rand. So when you talk about 30 years, that's over the age of 18. That's over the age, if I understand correctly, of general maintenance in a divorce case. But this could run on for 3 decades.
Absolutely. And to add one more layer of complexity, not to make it too difficult, we deal in estates, and we have seen this many, many times before, where there's a maintenance order, it was granted, there was non-payment, the person who wasn't paying passes away, say 7 or 8 years after the order was granted, and we contact those spouses and say, hey, look, and we've actually been upholding this view of the 30 years. And even if the children then, they were dependent and maybe under the age of 18, and 3 decades means, they're going to be well into their adult years, we don't believe that detracts from the fact that amount of money was owing and should be paid. And we are grateful for this court order that now says 30 years, so we can approach the courts and recover that money.
And I think this is why it's so important as well to understand the ramifications and how long a tail this actually has as well. I want to say goodbye to you in a moment, Alex, but just before I do, so as you and I sit here today on the 7th of March at 23 minutes away from 9 o'clock, what is the current standing? We know this court case could change things, but as of this moment, this hour, this minute, what is the current status? And could this court case change things in the near future?
Our view is that this court case has upheld what was originally the view of the legal profession, and that such orders have a time period of 30 years in which you can claim for non-payment.
All right, Alex, I appreciate your time in speaking to us this morning. It's CEO of Capital Legacy. It's always good to have Alex here on ENCA. Explains things in Gareth terms. That's how I always like to frame it. If I can understand what's going on, it must be quite easy for you to follow as well. CEO of Capital Legacy, Alex Simeonides, joining us here on the South African Morning. Can you believe it's been 2 years already since South Africa announced its first COVID